problem scenarios in this case. Firstly, undeclared family income. Mr. Ahmad failed to declare all his income, whereby he does not mention to IRB the additional income of 200,000 ringgit from other business and investment that he made. This shows that he is lack of honesty and does not fulfill his responsibility as a taxpayer. Second, lack of knowledge. Mr. Ahmad is not aware that his type of income must be reported as if it's taxable. He thought that he just needed to pay the tax of the main income. However, he didn't know that any side income he gains is also taxable. Third, tax evasion. Mr. Ahmad had committed tax evasion due to not reporting or underreporting amount of 200,000 ringgit. He can be subjected to criminal offences that leads to penalties, fines, or imprisonment because tax evasion is considered breaking the law.
Firstly, we have to know what are Mr. Ahmad's responsibility as a taxpayer. If Mr. Ahmad have not registered a tax identification number, aka TIN yet, he can perform it either manually or online in category B form. He also obligates to declare all of his income without even trying to hide anything in order to avoid tax evasion. Next, he must pay the tax income in within 30 days of due date. Otherwise, he will be charged 10% as a penalty. Moreover, Mr. Ahmad should also keep all important and relatable documents for at least 7 years in order to ascertain his chargeable income, tax payable, and to do the audit. Lastly, if he hire employees for his business, he also must notify the Director General of any commencement or cessations of an employee within 30 days. Firstly, Mr. Ahmad required to register TIN under individual category via online application in e-Daftar or manual at nearest Hasil branch. Second, according to Section 82, Mr. Ahmad who carrying a business are required to keep and retain in a safe custody sufficient record for a period 7 years from the end of the relevant year. If his sales exceed 150,000, he also required to print receipts with serial number. Third, Mr. Ahmad shall furnish his tax return to Hasil manually in a Form B by 30 June of the following year assessment. After the submission, he needs to pay the income tax as estimated by Director General. If there's any balance of income tax payable, shall be settled by 30 June in the following year assessment. Next, after Director General deemed to have made the assessment in respect of Mr. Ahmad's tax return furnished to him, Mr. Ahmad deems to be served the notice of assessment on that day also. Lastly, Mr. Ahmad is allowed to amend his tax return only once within 6 months from the date of the submission of tax return. Lastly, if Mr. Ahmad hire employees for his business, he also must notify the Director General of any commencement or cessations of an employee within 30 days.
Hi, I will be telling about tax returns and assessment. In tax return, there are multiple forms for taxpayer to submit according to their source of income. As for Mr. Ahmad, who is a business owner, he would submit his tax returns by using Form B on 13 June on the following year if manually, and 50 July if he submitted by e-filing form. He is required to disclose all of his source of income during the tax return. After the submission of the tax returns, the tax authority may accept the return and raise an assessment accordingly. There are various types of assessment a taxpayer could receive. Mr. Ahmad would receive an additional assessment because he has an additional income that didn't take into account when making the tax return. The assessment is a notice to indicate the sum of income tax payable and will be sent through post. If Mr. Ahmad didn't receive it, he should tell the tax authority that he didn't receive the assessment. Otherwise, he could be charged for the penalty for the late payment of tax payable. That's all.
According to Section 77B, in Mr. Ahmad's case, his income has been underreported or omitted, which allow him to make an amendment. However, Mr. Ahmad can make the amendment only once for every year assessment, according to Section 77B, Clause 5. The first thing Mr. Ahmad must do is to make an amendment, is to complete and then submit a required form known as the Amended Return Form, ARF, alongside with the assessment in the Income Tax Return Form, ITRF, within 6 months from the due date of ITRF. The Amended Return Form shall specify the increased sum ascertained in accordance with Subsection 77D, Clause 4 of ITA 1967, or particulars that are required by the Director General of Inland Revenue. As for the rate and computation of increase in tax, it shall be 10% of the amount of such tax payables or additional tax payables. Next, the amended return form must be understood to be a notice of assessment or notice of extra assessment, and it must be believed that this notice was served on the day that the amended return form is provided. This section also must be duly signed by the specified individual that are listed in subsection 75 clause 1 of ITA 1967. Lastly, when the steps have been completed, the form must be sent to Lembaga Hasil Dalam Negeri Malaysia branch that handles the file.
Next is offences and penalties. According to Section 112, Subsection 1 of the Act provides that any person who makes default in furnishing a return in any 1-year assessment without reasonable excuse be guilty of offence and shall be liable to fine of not less than 200 ringgit and not more than 20,000 ringgit or imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months or both. So, based on Mr. Ahmad's case, he failed to declare 200,000 ringgit of his income, which he had earned through various side business and investments. It shows that he failed to furnish a return for that year of assessment. Therefore, he is subject to a penalty of not less than 200 ringgit and not more than 20,000 ringgit or imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months or both. Another case is Mr. Ahmad also failed to give notice of chargeability to tax. In accordance to Section 77, Subsection 3, he will be subjected to a fine not less than 200 ringgit and not more than 20,000 ringgit or imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months or maybe both. Lastly, since Mr. Ahmad did not declare his income tax by not submitting tax return, he was considered as tax evasion. Therefore, he will be subjected to a fine of not less than 1,000 ringgit and not more than 20,000 ringgit or imprisonment for a term not exceeding 3 years or both. Next, we move on to appeal. Section 99, Subsection 1 of the Act provides that a taxpayer who is dissatisfied with an assessment made on him for any year of assessment by the Director General of Inland Revenue Board relating to the public ruling, rules and practices is entitled to appeal by submitting the Notice of Appeal, which is Form Q, with grounds of appeal. Form Q must be submitted within 30 days after the serving of notice. Mr. Ahmad has not been diligent in declaring all his income to the LHDN. The audit revealed that he had not declared 200,000 ringgit of his income, which he earned through various side businesses and investment. To appeal, he must file Form Q by stating the grounds of appeal within 30 days after the service of the Form B, which is not later than 14 August for online or 30 July if manually. However, Mr. Ahmad failed to submit tax return according to due date. Therefore, he is not eligible to appeal on non-chargeability.
For the conclusion, Mr. Ahmad, who is the chargeable person, is responsible for tax income payment and shall comply and cooperate with LHDN regulations. He is responsible for calculating his tax liability and filing tax returns, which should be accurate and proper documentation for smooth tax assessment. However, he could seek professional advice for help in filing taxes and ensuring it is in compliance with Malaysian tax laws.